because welcome everyone. Apologies for the slight delay, but we are ready to rock and roll. My name is Motsialwa. I'm from the speaker's firm. Welcome and thank you for choosing to join the Empower Entrepreneurs Digital Conversations, a COVID-19 discussion hosted by EmpowaWorks. A very special welcome to our keynote speaker, Mr. Dondo Mogajane, Director General, National Treasury. We have a broad representation of stakeholders joining us directly via Zoom, and they will post their questions on the chat box. At the end of the keynote, there will be a Q&A, and we will respond to as many of the questions posted as possible. Still admitting people, bear with me there. To get a direct invite to the next talk on the 25th of May 2020 by Ms. Dumili Baga, CEO of the Keth Sita, please contact our WhatsApp number 082 088 5262 or contact the EmpowaWorks website, which is www.empowerworks.co.za, where you'll also be able to get information on Empower Men, Empower Women, Empower Youth, Speakers Firm, leadership summits, and other events. We are live on the following EmpowerWorks digital platforms: YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and the hashtag that we are following is EmpowaEntrepreneurs. COVID-19 has changed the world, and we look to perhaps the person with the biggest purse or the biggest instrument on the financial side to tell us what's been keeping him up at night. I'm going to hand over to you, Mr. Dondo Mogajane, Director General and National Treasury, to just take us through 25 to 30 minutes of your talk, and then we'll open it up for discussion. Over to you, sir. You should be able to speak now, sir. Good. Please unmute. Yeah, you are now unmuted. You can start, sir. Thank you.
Yes. I was saying thank you very much. You are correct when you say COVID-19 has changed the world. It has changed us. It has changed South Africa. It has changed our daily living and the way we conduct ourselves at the workplace. It has really to respond. Not only has it affected our daily lives, but it has affected the purse, as you can imagine. We entered COVID-19, this financial year, on a positive note after presenting the budget. We thought we'll get things going. We thought we'll turn the tide around in terms of the downward spiral that we saw our economy. But then what we did not expect, obviously, was COVID-19. What also we did not expect, though we knew that it's possible, was the downgrade by Moody's. The downgrade by Moody's really had a huge impact on the fiscus, including then what COVID-19 brought with it. Currently, as we speak, COVID-19 has brought loss of jobs. COVID-19 has brought with it less than expected declining tax revenues, which are much needed in order for us to be able to turn the economy around and to make the impact that we want to make through taxpayers' resources that we're getting on a daily basis. We're projecting anything between 250 to 300 billion rand under collection, if you can imagine. The details we'll publish later in terms of the adjustment or supplementary budget that we'll be publishing later that takes into account COVID, that essentially puts into law the 500 billion rand that the president announced. So yeah, there are challenges. The impact is going to be large, as you can imagine. No doubt, we expect that a third of the impact that we have is going to come from weaker and lower global growth. So South Africa is not alone here. The whole world is affected. Our trading partners in Europe, our trading partners in the East are obviously affected. And the implications of the fiscus are huge. And there is no way, we have to really do something. 100 billion, by any margin, it's not enough. It's not enough because we think the impact is going to be huge. Loss of jobs, loss of income, closure of businesses, small businesses are going to be highly affected. So yes, we are trying to make some interventions with the fiscal package and response that we addressed. We want to save businesses. Part of the package, you've got 200 billion. That is an emergency guarantee loan scheme that the banks will have to advance to businesses, and that the banks will have to make sure that these businesses get the necessary support, financial support, in order to pay for loss of income, to pay for rentals, to pay salaries where possible. And this is, as we know, is going to affect many large firms and small firms. There's also about 130 billion rand or so of resources that should be reprioritized from existing budgets in order for us to be able to pay or meet the obligations that the president announced around the fiscal response from a social grant perspective. As you know, for 6 months, we were trying to avert the possible impact, huge impact that may be felt by loss of income for at least all those people who normally would rely on social grants. So we are increasing child support grant, as you know. We are increasing other types of grant, or disability grant. And there's also about the 350 rand that will be given to the unemployed, albeit on a 6-month basis. What we have also done, we have put aside 100 billion rand. And bulk of the issues that you wanted me to speak about centers on the kind of fiscal support that is available for small businesses, for affected businesses. There's about 100 billion rand that the president indicated very clear that you'll have to ensure that your spaza shops in townships, your small medium enterprises are catered for, including opportunities for creating short-term jobs that actually will make it easy for people to be able to cushion the impact of COVID-19 and also the impact of the downgrade. Let's not leave that out. It's important to also realize that the downgrade itself, getting out of the WIPI index, government bond index, had made very, very difficult for us in terms of what the interest we are paying on loans. So it's not going to be very cheap for us to be raising money. So it's important that there are specific issues that we should be aware of as South Africans, that we are faced with the downgrade, and we are also faced with the COVID, and the implications are huge, meaning the resources that would normally have available, as I said, are not going to be available. So we obviously have to rely on loans. We have to rely on increasing our exposure further, but we have to do it in a very responsible way so that we don't in-debt the future generations more to what they can afford. So the challenge is going to be, how do we balance making resources available vis-a-vis ensuring that we actually embark on a debt program that's sustainable even for the future. Now, there is a question around the support that we are giving. In the first instance, we made, after initial set of reprioritization toward the end of the previous financial year, we made resources available from reprioritized budgets. We specifically came with the tourism support package, and including the small business support package, where we came up with a facility for business growth and resilience facility, as we explained in the government system. So it's important that I think, Chaba, that colleagues who are listening, including South Africans generally, understand the various packages that are there. We have seen that some are not cannot be accessed because people don't know about it. So the challenge remains for us that we should publicize the opportunities available that government has created in accessing resources, including opportunities, as you know, that are available from the Solidarity Fund, including other foundations. For instance, the Motsepe Foundation, the Oppenheimer Foundation, all of them have made proposals, and they've put options in place for us to be able to cushion the impact. Now, in terms of support measures for level 4 trading, the support measures has not changed for level 4 and level 5. We will be in the first stage. We said we'll support households, we'll support firms, and we'll also support individuals. And we've been doing that, individual businesses, sorry. We have been doing that, and I think cognizance must be taken that albeit in a very difficult environment that we're in, government is still able to support these businesses for them to hold ground in the midst of and the impact thereof. Now, we are aware of the risks associated with the kind of support measures and corruption or misappropriation of funds that may likely be there. We have put oversight measures in place. We have been engaged with the Auditor General to ensure that we have measures, auditing measures in place to ensure that the allocations and the grants that we are giving are actually given to people who deserve and people who actually will use these grants to actually better their lives. So there's no doubt that we'll continue doing and will continue to play our oversight role. There are initiatives, let's not forget what we said at the budget. There are initiatives that we should continue to actually push forward. We know that the digital youth employment intervention that the president spoke about in the State of the Nation. We should not abandon that because the thinking at the time was focused and we were talking about young entrepreneurs, we're talking about creation of jobs, and I think we should continue as part of the 100 billion rand that the president announced, ensure that actually implement this initiative that the president spoke about. There is the jobs that go from 2011 to show that it produces the jobs and support the jobs that are there. At the job summit, in 2018, we made some commitments. And those commitments, as I say, we should not forget about those commitments. And we are not, as government, forgetting about the commitments. There are decade-long programs about the Community Works Development Program, Expanded Public Works. All I think we need to do is to ensure that we scale this up in a way that the net becomes wider and in a way that we are able to get more people to support, to support. Again, at the investment summit, as you know, the president made certain comments, and there were some direct job creation interventions that we talked about. And again, so I'm just reminding ourselves here that there are some of the programs that we agreed on before. We should not abandon those. With a few initiatives, a few 2 years ago, the president launched the Youth Employment Service in 2018. Again, that initiative should not be left to actually die in a way that we should. We published a document last year towards an economic strategy where we identified certain structural reforms that are critical to actually take our reform agenda forward. And if correctly implemented, we think this will actually support the creation of more jobs that are needed in our economy. Now, in terms of businesses, unregistered businesses or informal business, can they access some of the relief funds? Ideally, we want these informal businesses to be formalized. We want to know where they are and we want to register them. The Department of Small Business Development has done a great, they're embarking on a good program to actually know where these plaza shops are in general dealers and townships, to know where these small businesses are and support them. What we know that there's approximately 2.9 million of these informal businesses, and we have to bring them in the fold to know them and know how to support them with obviously limited resources that we have. And there is grants and support grants from the CEDA and the Department of Small Business, and I think it's important that these opportunities are seized by those businesses, small as they are, in order for them to make sure that they don't lose more jobs and the economy does not breathe further. There is another issue that you also wanted me to touch about entrepreneurship generally. It is vital for economy and for economic development. And again, innovation should be the key. We should ensure that they get the necessary support. Now, one of the key programs that we announced at the time of the budget was the Township Entrepreneurship Fund that Small Business Department announced. Again, we should not forget that this fund exists, and this fund can be accessed through the Department of Small Business Development in order to ensure, again, that jobs are kept. The Department of Trade and Industry has got certain programs, for instance, such as the agro-processing support scheme and aquaculture development and enhancement program, which support business in these sectors. And these have got a total budget of almost 650 million in the 2021 financial year. We encourage people to approach these opportunities and the money that's there. So there's about 658 million in the current budget available. I'm not talking new money, but I'm talking existing money, so that those who are in the agro-processing space and in the aquaculture, there are opportunities, and the DTIC is available for them. There are other several programs that and it's important, and I must encourage South Africans here to ensure that they are paying themselves with the different websites in government, because there's lots of information there in individual departments, including, by the way, how to access the social relief of distress grant of about 350 rand. That's there. So accessibility should be encouraged at all costs. So, in a nutshell, what am I saying in this seminar? I'm saying three things. One is that COVID-19 and the downgrade is calling on us as government, as South Africans, as businesses, as individuals, as unemployed, to get into this uncharted territory that I don't know, and approach it with what it is. You cannot try and get into a war situation with water pistols. I think in a war situation, as the president said, we are in a war here and in a war against COVID. We must have proper guns with ammunition that's necessary to win the war. With water pistols, you can't. And we must allow ourselves to enter into uncharted territory. I think the success of the South African story is that when 1994 came, it came with challenges. We were new in government, as you can imagine. We had to do new things, extraordinary things that will turn the tide. And we did that successfully so. When we rally around each other, it's possible. So it's a call to actually fight this pandemic. It's a call to fight the downgrade in a way that we want to win. The second point is that I'm saying the resources are not many, but they are there. The limited resources in the system should be expanded. We must ensure that the procurement regime, we are able to stretch that strength. We must ensure that new opportunities are created. We must ensure that we use COVID to actually relook at ourselves, do some introspection, and decide and agree what new things we should be doing. The final point I want to make is that with the resources may not be tomorrow. The economy is bleeding, we know that. We will lose jobs, you know that. As I said, tax revenues are declining, you know that. Therefore, what then do we do with the limited resources? How do we stretch the rent? So a clarion call that I'm making to us in government and to every South African in terms of what business, for instance, charge government. The kind of deals that we enter in with the private sector as government. How sustainable can they be in order for us to have a tomorrow? So it is not an easy call. It is not going to be easy. It's not going to be easy to ensure that we share the little that we have as a country. So I'm prepared and I'm ready to answer questions, if any, Chair. But the message is very clear. COVID-19 is huge. The impact is huge. We've got what it takes as South Africans to rally around each other. We have seen recently, 10 years ago, with the World Cup, when we thought the whole world thought we were not going to pull it off properly. We rallied around each other and we did that. And the first known rallying around each other was to defeat apartheid. Here is COVID and here's the downgrade. With the commitment that I've seen demonstrated by the cabinet, led by the President of the Republic of South Africa, and with the support of South Africans, we know we are going to make mistakes, many, because this is uncharted territory. It has never happened in 60 years that South Africa faced such a huge challenge. The last time we were almost in a territory like this, where growth is not what it is, where there's reductions in growth. The IMF and many other people are talking about us, going to be growth going to be a -8, -12%. Some even say it's -14%. And everyone has got their own figure out there. But the reality is that we have to turn the tide. We have to have the resilience that we are known for and be able to do things differently and be able to change. And with your support and with the support of colleagues in the government system, we should be able to change this and make sure that South Africa becomes what it is. Chair, I'll stop there and hope we'll have a fruitful engagement later. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. I'm going to ask you to open your iPad. I have to say we have been struggling with audio. That's why we switched it off. If you don't mind on your side, can you open your iPad, your audio?
Thank you. It is open as we speak. I've opened it up.
Okay, let me just... Good. Are you able to see the questions in the chat box? If not, I can read them to you and then we will continue the conversation. I like the fact that we finished in 25 minutes,
read them.
Which gives us quite a lot of time then to go through the questions. So just bear with me, and for everybody, I'm going to switch off my video as I've done, and then we'll see how it goes. Once again, thank you very much, Dondo. The audio has been a little bit shaky. So let me see where the first question is. Lassie says, what is your advice to emerging entrepreneurs who want to open a business? What kind of operational businesses can a beginner open under the post-COVID-19? Let's start with that one.
Look, my advice, look, it depends where. It depends what kind of business you want to open. Currently, you will be aware that, the easiest business, for instance, now in the COVID environment, is everyone is producing masks. There are some standards that obviously we insist on, cloth masks especially. They'll be needed everywhere in the system. Look at partner with colleagues, with cooperatives, partner with some of the established SMEs, available facilities, make sure, and then we can produce them and supply them to the state. What we said for this purpose, we will relax some of the procurement regulations. We will, for instance, allow small business people to, including established business, including cooperatives, relevant authorities, and then of course. But I think it's important that we then redefine.
We're going to try and phone you, and at those, I'm going to start the audio again. So if you can just pause, we're going to phone you, and as we phone you, the audio is definitely going to improve. Can you hear me? If you can start the video again on your side. Okay, bear with us, guys. We are just gonna re-phone the speaker to be able to just get much better audio. Can you hear me in Dondo where you are? We are still here. Do not panic, guys. We are still here. Apologies. We are just trying to establish a much better connection with the speaker. Okay.
I can hear you, Chow. The problem is I cannot change my mute because you are controlling it there. I've been on for a while, yes.
Okay, so apologies. We will try and phone you if we lose a line again.
That's fine. The video on, okay, stop. It's fine. Okay.
Yeah, let's stop the video for now and then just go through the audio.
Perfect. Yeah.
Perfect. And then for everybody, we're going to go with audio for now. So apologies. And let me locate the next questions and then we go through. I think the next question without delay is, there's a question around why SMMEs are punished with interest-bearing loans post-COVID-19. Maybe if you can start there.
Look, I think it's important that we should have a very serious conversation with the Banking Association of South Africa in terms of how banks are charging and the relaxation of some of their own processes, because it's important. I think it's something that's to their customers, and I think that should be encouraged, including small business. I think we take note, and this is a conversation that we have to have with the Banking Association to actually recognize that everyone is in trouble, and they must also, where possible, come to the party. We did as government for them in some businesses where we relaxed a few tax measures that we introduced around many things that we introduced in the first round. So I think we should have a conversation with the Banking Association then.
Thank you very much, sir. Then the next question comes from Yvonne. I think that one was Master. Says the 500 billion that has been made available for COVID relief, how much is it going to cost the country, and what are the consequences if we fail to pay?
Look, we're not going to go out in the market and borrow the 500 billion, if you remember. The 200 billion of that is a support, is a loan guarantee scheme to banks. And the issue there is that it increases, obviously, our contingent liabilities. There's only about 100 billion or so that will have to go into the market and borrow from, that obviously has to be factored in, as I said, in our debt and how it impacts on debt to GDP. 100 billion of that, and obviously people, who obviously are going to lend us this money, we have said we are going to, approach multilateral development banks, the World Bank, the IMF, the New Development Bank, the BRICS Bank, and the African Development Bank. In total, we think we should get about 100 billion. And by the way, I must emphasize that the resources coming from these MDBs is much cheaper than when you raise money from the capital market. So we think in the lifespan of these loans, if you look at the 10 or 20 year, we should anyways save about in interest payment about 60 or so billion rand. If you look at the lifespan of a 10 or 20 year bond that would normally raise in borrowing. So there are benefits in the short term, and we think we should be in a way. And there will obviously be some tests in whether we'll be able to repay. And I don't think we have never defaulted. We are not in a debt trap as a country. So we still, in a way, call it credit worthy as things are currently. But we have to be very careful to maintain the status.
Thank you very much there, sir. I love this next question. It says, with the tobacco and the alcohol industry being restricted, what strategies are in place to help those that rely on these industries to support their families, people like tavern owners?
Look, it was not ideal for us to stop selling alcohol. It was not ideal for us to stop selling tobacco. It was not easy for us to close the economy. But I think as government, we had to ask ourselves a very tough question. Do we want the impact of COVID to destroy this nation? Or do we want to preserve it for the future? Do we have to then suffer in the short term when we actually have to make sure that in the long term we benefit? So this was a key issue for us, and it's even a key issue for us as to when do you unlock the economy? It's going to be a very difficult thing. Look, we know the impact of alcohol, no doubt about that. And we know the impact of tavern owners, that they will be impacted like any other is impacted currently. The taxi industry is impacted. Jobs are being lost. The car guards, the car washes in townships, the Chisanyama in townships, the restaurant industry, everyone is affected. But I think let's look at it as a responsible nation and say, we are doing this thing in order for us to kill the pandemic and the virus, and in order for us to have a country tomorrow. And I think that has been the approach now. And I think it's important that we rally around that call. And it's something that I think we should commend South Africans on, because they've respected this request and call by the president. And so far, we are doing well. We know it's going to impact us in terms of income and resources and customs and excise duties that we would normally, get as part of the fiscus, including revenue. But we know it's short-term suffering, but there's going to be long-term gain.
Thank you, sir. Lamez from Fin24 says, has Treasury considered a social bond to plug the financial gap to fund COVID-19 interventions? How will a social bond differ from the existing government bond programs?
Lamez, hi. Social impact bonds are instruments that are used world over. We know about them. And we know there are people out there who would be prepared to put their money in social impact bonds. As you know, social impact bonds is, Chaba, you and I, who are philanthropists, and we've got enough money, and we just want to see the state of affairs or state of poverty changing in South Africa. And as a result, we are able to put money into that, and we'll be happy if more people get out of the poverty trap. That's basically social bonds to an extent. Also look at things like those. We are not ruling anything out at this point in time in terms of that, in terms of there's also a call on solidarity bond that some South Africans will be, or people globally will be saying, we believe the South African story, we support South Africa, we'll put our money in it, and we'll wait and see if things can be turned around. So we have not as yet fully looked at the implications of what that will be, and I'm not ruling that out. And our teams are flat out looking at all options, and social impact bonds and solidarity bonds are things that we're also obviously looking at, and we'll be more than welcome. That means if you and many other South Africans has got proposals that can be sent to us and that we can look at and engage with, and hopefully, by, as I say, putting all our heads together, we should come up with options that will help us go beyond the current pandemic.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. At a practical level, I know I've skipped a couple of comments and questions from some of the people that have already asked questions. I acknowledge that. I've jumped to Milton, who says, good evening, DG. We have applied for SMME relief fund through CIFA, and we have not even had an acknowledgement of receipt of our application. Where do we go to in such instances?
I'm going to give you an email address, dgregistry@treasury.gov.za. I mean, send us the details. We work very well with departments in government. We've got a direct relationship with CIFA, and I think we should be able to check and find out for you. And we'll use that for now as use us as a pet to just ask your questions and ask support that where possible, because I think they are swamped with applications. There are many people, businesses affected there, and we'll be more than happy to assist where possible in terms of ensuring. It could be that the application may have gone astray, it's possible that the application may have not been considered, but we will be more than happy to assist. So if you send us an email at that email address that we sent, and we'll gladly forward it to the relevant people at CFund and the relevant people at the Department of Small Business Development to assist.
Thank you very much, sir. And for everybody that's posting questions, sometimes you put them privately to me, sometimes basically on the open channel. I encourage you to put all your questions on the open channel. So Kiabezo 1 is very long, but essentially what Kiabezo is saying is, can you outline the government program of action to allow people to buy at the right, essentially saying the whole RFP process is cumbersome, and during this time, it is possible that you may not even know the right price. What is the plan to make sure that you are buying at the right price quickly?
We have got, I've got colleagues, a dedicated team in the Chief Procurement Office who are only looking at strategic procurement, who will go into industry, go into the market, and ensure that we understand the prices, we understand the limits that are there. And these colleagues have been very helpful in the last few days around PPEs and the cost thereof. When need be, we increase the price. When need be, we reduce the price. Because if the relationship between demand and supply obviously has got impact on price, we look at all of those things and look at the industry and the industry norms, and we are able to then make sure that we charge correctly. We are aware also whereby there's price collusion in some cases, and I think we must be very clear in terms of making sure that we actually stretch that rent that I was talking about in my opening remark. And I mentioned specifically that our procurement regime should ensure that the prices that government is charged, we are able to, in some instances, be not be price takers like it is, but we must be price setters in a way and what we want to pay. Because as you can imagine, there are instances where we are being charged for a glass of bottled water. We are charged 3 or 4 times what it will cost you at macro. And how agile our procurement regime to ensure that we pay the right price and ensure that people get respectable profits, but not exhaustive profits. And how do we also ensure that in some cases, we cut the middleman in ensuring that we're able to go directly to source, because it is source that will ensure that more people are employed where the actual goods are manufactured. So it's sometimes important. Then we have to enter into a very difficult conversation in South Africa. How do you encourage South Africans to not only be middlemen in terms of buying something for 10 rand and selling for 15 rand? Why can't they manufacture themselves? Because the manufacturing cost is going to be 5 rand when they're actually buying for 10 rand. So you have to encourage entrepreneurship at that level. We have to encourage industrialization, ensuring that new industrial giants are created in the space. And there'll obviously be wholesalers. We understand that there'll always be people like who will actually buy and pass it on and put a markup. But that markup should be a reasonable markup. And that's where our strategic procurement colleagues work flat out on a daily basis in ensuring that the prices that we pay are the right prices, and that government is not fleeced to a point where the resources go to waste, when we should actually be preserving them, because the challenges are so many where these resources have to make an impact.
Thank you, sir. Going on to our digital platform on Facebook and WhatsApp, Noah Innocentia is saying, we in the taxi industry request fast tracking of the taxi relief fund, especially in breeds. And Kutlwano is saying, the president indicated that 20 billion will be allocated to municipalities. Is it for new infrastructure or maintenance? And when will the funds be gazetted and disbursed?
Look, Kutlwano is talking from Brits. I mean, that's my hometown. So, we don't want to be, looking at Brits, but we are in discussion with the Department of Transport. The DG of Transport and I talk on an ongoing basis, and I know he's been engaging with the taxi sector and ensuring that the relief fund is finalized. What I can confirm is that discussion is happening. The discussions around the quantum is is currently an issue between us and the Department of Transport. And remember, what is important, and again, unfortunately, it's something that is out of control. I don't have control over that in terms of every transfer that we make. Every transfer that we make, as correctly said, must be gazetted, must be legislated, and it must find expression in law, including creation of new transfer lines in our own processes and the transparency that informs our budget. It's a bureaucratic thing, unfortunately, but the commitment made by the Minister of Transport is there to ensure that that relief fund is disbursed as soon as possible once the legal processes that authorizes the Department of Transport to pay this amount. We are working flat out to, as I said in my opening remarks, to finalize the supplementary budget, of which supplementary budget will take care of all of the, including how the 300 billion rand, for instance. I'm saying 300 carefully because I said the 200 billion is a loan guarantee scheme of some kind. The 300 billion that includes the new support mechanisms, that include the new revenue numbers, that include the new revenue estimates and the fiscal framework and the deficit, will all be announced at the time of the supplementary budget. We are working flat out with that. The Ministers' Committee on the Budget met last week, this week. It is meeting again next week in ensuring that we are able to authorize and finalize. And once this thing is before Parliament, which should be very soon in the month of June, then we will definitely, those disbursements will come as soon as we've got the authority to do that. So it's not going to be long. It's not going to be next year. It's still going to be this year within the required period.
Thank you. On a lighter note, but a very serious note, Semi makes the point that we're probably using an LTE connection, and it just indicates how even when we move into fourth industrial revolution, digital and so on, that we may not even be able to show that nobody's left behind. And I'm sure he'll follow up on your the email address that you gave, because he does have a solution around issues of connectivity to make sure that nobody's left behind. And the glitches that we have, we found that to be symbolic of the big problem that we might have as a country. Just moving on quickly to some.
I welcome that. Welcome.
Yeah. I think Semi must just follow through on what he does that. Semi, you had that. What happens in a situation where the company is owing SARS and does not have tax clearance? Does it mean you lose out from accessing available relief grants? That's from Nonhlanhla.
Look, tax compliance is something that we cannot relax even in a COVID-19 environment. There's an old saying, pay to Caesar what belongs to Caesar. And if you don't pay, SARS will definitely break your knees. So I would make sure that, be tax compliant. Your tax affairs should be in order, because that is what's going to make it easy for us to disburse all the monies that we're talking about when we have them. Now, if you are not paying taxes, how then are we going to be able to support? So I think that's a precondition, and we're not going to, on that one, I can tell you, if the Commissioner of SARS was on this call, or the Minister of Finance, you'd hear them saying that's a no-go area. Pay your taxes, register, make sure. If you don't have a tax clearance certificate, you will never be able to do business with the state. If you do it, it's going to be illegal. If you do it, it's going to be irregular, and the person who granted the tender will definitely be in trouble. So I think getting your tax orders in tax affairs in order is priority number one, and I think we should encourage that at all costs.
Thank you very much. Peter is encouraging everyone to perhaps stop their video, so that we can improve the audio as a suggestion there. There is a general question that talks about, are you concerned if we do a lot of adjustments that there will be losses of jobs in the public sector and the implications thereof?
Look, that's a different area, it's a different domain in terms of the discussion between the Department of Public Service and Administration and the department, and the labor unions and the labor movement. Currently, as things are, we in the budget have made a proposal to claw back on 160 billion rand. That conversation is ongoing. That conversation, we said, has to be approached very carefully. We also have to acknowledge that, and some people, some of my colleagues will say to me that, is this the most efficient public service, effective public service in terms of the numbers that we have? For 1.2 million people, do we need 1 million, or do we need 700, or do we need 1.6 million or more? So those will remain key questions. COVID-19 itself presents new challenges. I'll give you an example. There are schools, and you and I know these schools. Some of these schools have got 60 children in the classroom. We know it's ideal for a school to have 20 children in the classroom, or a maximum 32, like the norm would have said. It's effective if it's 20, less than 20, then it's a manageable class. The teacher is able to pay attention to each and everyone. Now, if many of our township schools and rural schools have got 60 children in a classroom, and we have to ensure that the social distancing, and we have to ensure that we improve the quality of education, effectively it means you have to break that class into two. Effectively it means you must hire more teachers. Effectively it means for that category, and I don't know how many of that such a category of schools fall in that category where there's average of 60 children in a class. It means we have to double the number of teachers. By doubling the number of teachers, we mean we have to employ more teachers. Crime is a problem in South Africa. It means we must employ more police officers. So how do we do that in a context where, like the earlier point, where taxes are not paid? How do we do that in a context where we need to ensure that we borrow more? What do we borrow for to pay for current expenditure? Or do we borrow in order to actually increase the productive sectors of the economy, which is ideal, and that's what we need to do in order to make this cake bigger and in order for us to employ more people. So there's always going to be an issue about, is this the right size of the public service? Do we need more frontline nurses and teachers and doctors vis-a-vis those of us who sit in offices and work in offices? Maybe you need a small proportion to those that are in the front line. Every time you pass the Home Affairs office, there are long queues. In some cases, because of the number of staff. So it's important that we approach this very carefully, whether we are going to then, get rid of people or exit people in the system, and who do you bring on in terms of ensuring that there are more people who will be able to actually have direct impact on service delivery.
Thank you, sir. There's quite a lot of support for what Mapula said. Mapula said, this is such an important conversation. We're going to need to get you back with a much, much better audio. At that point, we'll just start with the questions and then see how it goes. So we'll be in touch again with your office to see you if we can do that. So I do acknowledge that. Let's continue with the questions. Nonhlanhla says, companies like Bonitas are blacklisting people during lockdown. Are they allowed to do so?
Look, I think each company will have their own challenges. They look at their own balance sheets and their own income statements and just say, if we spend more and the income is not there, what do we do? But the reality is that what we have appealed to people and the companies and businesses, we have said there's various support mechanisms to actually ease the burden. At least let's see what's going to happen in the next 6 months. If Bonitas is able to actually retain, if Bonitas is obviously going to take advantage of the loan, the cheap loan that is guaranteed by us, that the banks are going to start making available, please let them do that in order to save the jobs, in order to to keep the prices as they are, in order for them to be able to understand that the COVID environment impacts us all. We'll continue doing what we have to do in terms of ensuring that the prices that are charged don't double overnight. The Competition Commission is working flat out with the colleagues in the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition to ensure that we actually become vigilant in terms of those businesses that are going to exploit the situation to their advantage and to actually exploit more the environment and the situation because of some what may be selfish ends that are there. So it's important that businesses take it in themselves, and I'm speaking directly to businesses now, to understand the impact. We understand and we know that it cannot be. We understand the shareholders. We understand that if you are used to getting 50% profit after tax, maybe this time a grand bargain of some kind is needed, where this time around in 2021 financial year, that your profits will be kept at maybe 10% after tax and not 30 or 40% like you're used to. It's all about that, and that's the reality, and that's the kind of social compact that I think is needed from us, including labor, including business, including government, including society as a whole, in terms of making sure that we understand the impact and making sure that we rally around each other in a way that we carry each other post this environment and beyond. So if companies like Bonitas, as the example was, we will appeal to them for them to understand that it is a difficult situation for everyone. The impact is understandably going to be felt by all businesses, but there's a strong appeal from all of us to ensure that we approach this very responsibly. And that's something that we'll really appreciate moving forward.
We are still in conversation with Mr. Dondo Mogajane, Director General, National Treasury. We have just under 5 minutes to go. There are still 77 messages that I have not even gotten to. I guess one of the questions that has come through is, how do you assist unregistered businesses, given that the regulations stipulate that there should be proof that the business was operational before the lockdown?
No, it depends which regulation is there. I mean, I'm not aware, but the reality is that the business biz portal is up and running. The biz portal is not closed. I think I know new companies that were registered now during lockdown, and they've got the necessary approvals and certificates. And I think it should be business as usual. And if this business have to approach banks to get loans, those loans obviously will be assessed based on the capacity of this new business to actually meet, and deliver and meet the obligations. So I'm not aware. I think, and so far as I'm concerned, the biz portal is up and running, and that I don't think loans can be advanced on the basis that you are in existence before or after COVID. I think it will be wrong for everyone to say, "Oh no, you are not registered before COVID-19, so we cannot approve you or we cannot give you a loan." It will be wrong. I think it shouldn't be, and that I think it shouldn't be.
I'm just confirming that your email address is dgregistry@treasury.gov.za. I've just reposted that again. Thank you to somebody from your office. As I clicked the button, I missed that particular one. Ewan is asking another one, which is very complicated for us. Perhaps it's the second last question, saying, what are the relief funds for the tourism industry, and what are the plans to ensure that South African tourism industry is a strong contributor to the GDP when COVID-19 lockdown ends?
You will remember that in a paper that we issued last year, agriculture and tourism were the hallmark of what essentially will boost growth. Because we've got everything in South Africa that many countries in the world don't have. And so I think we have to take advantage of that. But the tourism industry also can flourish if there's the aviation sector is up and running. You know currently that there's no travel. There's travel restrictions and travel ban. Hotels are closed, and the whole hospitality industry is on its knees. So it is going to call on all of us to ensure that a very, very focused marketing program is kind of implemented. The DG of Tourism and I continuously engage and continuously share notes. This is one area that we should take advantage of, and take advantage of those countries, whether it's China and India, where the big numbers are in terms of possible tourists that may come, and the average spend that we obviously will spend in South Africa. That should be welcomed. And the Tourism Support Fund Initially, it was a small fund that, through a reprioritized fund that the department announced, whereby, again, I would encourage you to make sure that you acquaint yourself with what is in the Department of Tourism. I think it's www.tourism.gov.za, that you are able to check and understand the requirements for accessing that fund and what's there. And basically, what criteria is used. The criteria is also laid out in there. And I would plead with all of you who are in that space to ensure that you access that website of the Department of Tourism. You check what they require, and then you apply. And I know there are grants, and there are they range from small to medium-sized amounts, whereby, based on your business and based on what you do and the impact and the people that you employ, they're able to support. And I think we should encourage all of the people to actually ensure that they get onto that website and check.
We have basically run out of time. And as I promised everybody, we will try our level best to make sure that we get you back just for the Q&A. But we do appreciate the work that you're doing. There are many, many questions. And as you said in the beginning, you're putting your best foot forward. And when mistakes do happen, let the public find them out so that they can be corrected. I would like to thank you and apologize to you once again, Mr. Dondo Mogajane, Director General, National Treasury, for the unstable audio as well as the video, but the information that you communicated was absolutely crucial, and people are wanting to have a conversation with you. On behalf of EmpowaEntrepreneurs Digital Conversations, I would like to thank everybody that joined us live today, and a big apology once again for the quality of the transmission today. For joining us. These are crucial conversations that need everybody to participate. And thank everyone that was listening to us live on all our digital platforms. Hope to see you on Monday when we speak to Ms. Dumile Baka, CEO of the CETA, and the WhatsApp number 082-088-5262. And for everybody that gave me advice on how to improve the audio, I'll take that feedback and implement it for the next audios. Have a good evening, and thank you once again very much. DG, really appreciate your time. Good evening.
Thank you
very much. Thank you.